How you doing, Dean?
I'm awesome, man. I'm really, really good. We got a fantastic episode today.
Oh, pumped. Super
Yeah.
excited about this show. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Before we get to that, it is, we're in the middle of December, which is a massive time for churches getting ready for Christmas services, staying focused on that.
Right.
We've been doing some stuff on year-end giving. Hope people are taking advantage of that. That stuff's really important this time of year. But I love this time of year. It's the moment where you get to really shine as a church, and hopefully you're going to get like hundreds and hundreds of visitors over the next couple 3 weeks and be able to preach the gospel to them.
Yeah. It's a fantastic time. I mean, the house is decorated. Christmas services and festivities are all happening. Christmas parties, right? We just had the Tidely half team party, I guess, for the West Coast crew. And it's just a blast, and super excited to see what churches, I guess all over the world, from our perspective that we work with, kind of what they're doing for Christmas and how they're spreading the gospel and putting on great Christmas services.
Absolutely. So we're going to guest today that we'll introduce here in a moment, and from a large church, the Rock Church in San Diego. And we're going to talk about, kind of campaigns designed to raise funds. And I think this is going to be really, really great for pastors and leaders listening and or watching, how to raise funds for specific campaigns. And the Rock Church does it as good or better than anyone I've ever seen it. So
absolutely.
I'm excited for this.
Yeah, super, super excited. So I guess without further ado,
let's do it.
We should just bring in Chuck. Chuck, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing today?
Doing
great.
Awesome.
Welcome, Chuck. This is Chuck Leslie, everybody. He's the pastor of Stewardship at the Rock Church in San Diego, California. And if you're wondering how big a church needs to be to have its own pastor of Stewardship, I'm not sure, but the Rock qualifies. You guys are making a massive impact in San Diego, Chuck. Tell us a little bit about the church and what you do there as the pastor of Stewardship.
Yeah, it is a unique role. It's becoming more and more frequent in churches, I guess, probably bigger churches. There's two sides of the stewardship equation. One is the more traditional of walking people through financial stewardship and planning, kind of the Dave Ramsey sort of side of it, and teaching biblical stewardship and giving people tools. I do that to a degree. More my job at the Rock is fundraising.
Right.
Stewardship, I say, in colleges they call it advancement, in churches they call it stewardship. It's fundraising. It's raising money.
Yep.
And so I kind of oversee campaigns and special projects we do, and as well as help shape the weekly tithing moment and stuff like that for the church.
So just a quick question on that. I mean, do you think many churches kind of have the concept, even if they don't have a full-time person, but someone who's thinking about fundraising? Do you think that's common, or is that pretty unique to a subset of churches based on size or something else?
What's the old necessity is the mother of invention? So it probably depends on their financial status, how much they're thinking about fundraising. But all churches do, right? There's always the need to fund ministry. There's always the desire to do more ministry. I think where churches are learning is how to talk to their supporters in good ways, how to cultivate large donors and large donations, and to embrace that as opposed to shun it or be ashamed of it. And so this idea of having ministries that are kind of driven towards helping the affluents find their purpose in Christ and the purpose in their affluence is an important thing for churches to do, and to not be afraid of it.
So good.
That could be a whole nother show. It could be a whole nother show to talk about ministries to the affluent and things like that. Yeah, very interesting.
You said one thing, though, and I've got to bring you up. You said even that you are involved in shaping the giving moment on a Sunday. Just to spend 1 minute on that.
Gosh, it's we're always kind of mixing it up of how you do that, how you inspire, how you teach. And it kind of goes back and forth from, we'll have videos of a donor explaining the joy of learning how to be generous.
Right.
And we'll have a video of kids that were helping the orphanage in Haiti. So so seeing, those are different kind of messages, but they're both important, I think, of seeing how your giving makes a difference, and also teaching and encourage you by example of people sharing how they've grown in their generosity. And of course, services are tight, and the offering moments just the short moment of it. And so figuring out how to try to do that well and to change it up each week happens 52 times a year. So
it's a whole nother episode.
Never be afraid to script and produce really key moments in church life. I think that's the takeaway there.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about a particular campaign, Frank, that Chuck has been leading for The Rock, and I'm excited to hear about this.
Well, and maybe before we even jump into that, I mean, Chuck, you've been doing fundraising of some sort in the school, college, university kind of world, maybe K through 12, and obviously in the church world now for a while. So I think for over 20 years, what got you into that line of work, and what inspires you to do that kind of work?
It's funny. I actually got recruited out of helping politicians raise money, and just kind of having a knack for that, and then being called in to help do it from the church I grew up in.
Wow.
It's interesting. I would have a hard time asking to borrow your old used truck to use it to run something to the dump. I would wash it thoroughly before returning it and feel a little bit bad that I put you out. But I'll ask you $1 million to support a Christian ministry without thinking about it. Because it's really not for me, it's for what gets done. And what drives me is seeing funds come together and then awesome things be accomplished as a result. And sort of that driven thing to see something happen. And things need money to happen. And I tell you, I have a joke about my job is I take people out to lunch. It's usually a decently nice place. They usually pay for it, even though I try to. They write me a large check, and I made them happy. And I get paid to do it. It's kind of a scam. So but the truth in that is that the giver is just as blessed as the receiver when they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. They're seeing God's work happen because of something they were able to do and support. And really, you got to think about fundraising. You're adding significance to people's life. Giving them the opportunity to do something bigger than themselves, join other people, put together their giving, and see something happen that wouldn't happen alone, and that only God could see happen, but He uses us. So it's just fun. Right? It's fun. It's fun to talk about projects with people who are interested in supporting it.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, I feel like, Dean, we could, like, everything Chuck is saying is like what we've said on
gold.
Almost every show, right? Like, you got to have a conviction about what you're doing. You got to believe that, asking for money to fund the greatest mission on the planet is like, it should be easy, and every pastor should feel so excited and bold about doing that, but oftentimes they're not. So Chuck, it's like a breath of fresh air hearing you share even briefly about those things.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what I've learned is you talk to someone about money, but you're always depending on the Lord, not the person, and it takes the pressure off. You're sharing the need to see if this resonates with their heart and they want to get involved. If it doesn't matter. God's got a plan for it. You're never meeting with a person trying to get something from them. You're trying to see if it's going to be a partnership. And God just aligns things. As every pastor knows from how God just brings the right person at the right time and joyously supports. And there's no need to shy away from that, as you said.
Yeah. Amen. Well, yeah, the thing that kicked off this whole interview was at some point I was browsing on your website and I saw the All In campaign. And I remember from being at the church that you had the signs up on the walls for the All In campaign and different things like that. So it was on my mind. And then I saw the webpage and I was just really impressed with all the things that you hit. So without getting into the webpage specifically right now, I'd love to just learn more about, the All In campaign. What is it? Why do you guys do it? What's it for? Maybe how it got started, just unpack the All In campaign for us a little bit.
All right. What the All In campaign has become to us, this is now our second year in a row where it's kind of our annual special offering for above and beyond projects at the church. Not just outside the church, although most of it is outside the church, but even fixing up things within the church that are expensive, that are above and beyond kind of the regular tithes that would fund the normal church. Some places call it like the Heart for the House offering and things like that. So it's kind of that model where we have a date, middle of November, typically, where for 4 weeks leading up to it on the Sunday services, we're talking about come this Sunday, prepared to make a special gift in order for us to accomplish X, Y, and Z. And so that's sort of the pace of it. We've done bigger campaigns that take longer times to set up and therefore major projects. But this is sort of the annual special gift campaign for the Rock. And some of the projects are stuff that would mainly be covered under general giving, but the special campaign allows it to happen as it takes pressure off general giving. And some of it are just stuff way outside the church, like supporting our orphanage in Haiti, which has nothing to do with the general fund of San Diego Rock Church. So.
Right. And is it something that, does it go on all year long, or does it end in December, like generally speaking?
Yes.
All of it. Okay. Because I've seen the signs and things up during the year. So I was like, maybe this goes on all year, but it sounds like it also has an end.
We've kind of honed it down to it is kind of the special offering, but what will happen, there'll be an opportunity during the year that's also kind of above and beyond. And we'll kind of go, hey, we have another all-in project God's called us to do.
Got it.
So that's why. And what happened when we did our first big all-in campaign, we put those really expensive murals up, and they look good, so we haven't replaced them yet.
Understood. Well, how do you go about creating this campaign? Like, what were the blocking and tackling when you first dreamed it up, or your team there dreamed it up? Like, how did you put it together? What were some of the steps? Was there a checklist of things that you knew to do that you executed in the church?
The first part, of course, is honing in on the vision you believe God's given your church and what God's called the pastor as the leader of the church to lead the church in. So, kind of nailing that down. What's God called? What do we believe we're hearing God calling us to do in this case in 2019 that we need funds for? So determining that, of course, is the first part. And then the fundraising side, there's a couple key components. One is engagement with your larger donors ahead of time and strategies to get them involved in even making first fruit gifts or first gifts to the campaign. So you go into the offering Sunday with already a chunk of money raised. And then the most critical part I've found throughout the years is the series and the offering. And our church is unique. It's such a big church that we can't talk one-on-one ahead of time to everyone at all. But and this happened beautifully this year is that our pastor, Pastor Miles McPherson of the Rock Church, completely owned everything about the message, about how he's going to preach and talk about it. The series was called Thanks and Giving that led up to the all-in offering. And I say that because there's been years where kind of the stewardship department has said, we need to do this, and here's how you should talk about it. And those went okay. But when the pastor just owned it, he felt God was calling him at this time to call the people to greater generosity and for them to understand the joy of giving and to get their wallets saved, sort of thing. That's what energized it, was the pastor's passion that this is a message for you today, no matter where you're at. And this is something that, you need to participate in, not because the church needs it, wasn't so much the thing, but because of what God's called us to do. So, so that was the key thing with that. Some of the structural things with the campaign, it's a fairly common model in churches. We had a big dinner the Thursday before with our bigger donors, and They already been hearing about the campaign because it was in the third week of it, but that was a chance to kind of some personal time, some testimonies, some things, and then we took an offering there, which then provided even some enthusiasm for the offering for the main congregation as you talked about what's already been raised and what we believe God's called us to do. So those are some of the pieces.
Yeah, really. I mean, Dean, you've got a bunch of experience in doing this too. I mean, that seems to jive with a bunch of the stories I've heard you tell as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I love, and maybe you could just talk to this a little bit, the power of leading from the top, having the senior pastor own this. Yeah. I mean, from your experience, you know, Chuck, how critical is that?
100%. And again, there's been some campaigns where the senior pastor knew the need and, you know, obviously was behind it, but it wasn't, you know, it's been in various places I've been at, but it just wasn't flowing like this is the message God has for us today. And when that is the thing, as opposed to do, I have to do, I guess I got to talk about giving this week, that changes everything. We had 800 first-time givers in the month of November to the Rock Church.
This year,
this November.
Wow, that's
and
crazy.
It was interesting. A little more than half of that were to the campaign. The other half were just to the general fund.
Right.
So that brings up a phenomenal point about specific campaigns. Not only do they raise money for a specific campaign goal, but the whole conversation about generosity stirs people up to give to the general fund, right?
That's
just to start becoming tithers, perhaps, right? You see it every time.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is we didn't overemphasize your tithe versus your offering.
Yep.
Because we know people who grew up in the church understand that. We're kind of a seeker-friendly church. So that language was there a little bit for those who understood it, but more it was learn how to be a first fruit giver. Learn how your life changes when you're taking your first and giving it to the Lord, and that will change your life. So really that person should be given to the general fund as opposed to special offering. If they don't understand that, we don't really care.
Exactly. Exactly right. Let them work it out.
They're getting it. That'll all work out in the end somehow.
Yeah.
So.
And how do you kick off the campaign, Chuck? Like, did it come from Miles at campaign kickoff on a Sunday morning? That was the start of it, or did you do email communication or phone calls, or like, how does it all start and then flow from there?
I'll give. Let me just first give a pitch that getting consultant help of doing something like this is a good thing. There's a lot of different pieces of it, so we've used various consultants over the year. Even though I've done a lot, having someone from the outside help you think through it is a smart thing. Again, with a big church, we think about what the mass is here and then what, maybe a smaller group would hear. So on Sunday, well, even leading up to the first Sunday, so it was a 4-week series, the fourth week, actually ended up being 5 weeks, but week 4 was the offering.
Yeah.
Week 5 was the makeup offering because a lot of people don't make it to church every Sunday.
Right.
And actually, Pastor Miles was just so enthused about it. He goes, I want to go one more week talking about
Week 6 is coming.
Week 6 we had a guest speaker, so we had to stop. Leading up to that first week, all the announcements that go out about the new series were in the mix. And what we did this year, we just owned it. Hey, this is a thanks and giving series. We're going to talk about the benefits, even scientifically proven benefits of being thankful and being generous.
Mm-hmm.
Change your life if you learn those two things. And God talked about it, a long time ago.
Right.
And so from the beginning, we're going to have this offering on this date. And I want you to start praying about it. So that first week in the bulletin was a brochure, looked very similar, almost exactly similar to the website you're referencing. What's the word I'm looking for?
Talked about
that had the goal and the breakdown, how things were used. Each Sunday, the pastor would say, everybody grab this out, wave it. I want to highlight a little part of it, and I want you to start praying about what God will have you do when we do our special offering in 3 weeks from now, in 2 weeks from now, next week, sort of thing.
Right.
And so continual just sort of push. And then, we have ways we communicate to people through email about the campaign. Every week there was a special video, an impact video. Some of them were also talking about givers and their giving. That was emailed out on Monday with, if you miss it this Sunday, watch this great video, a little recap of the sermon, all that sort of stuff. And so just making it so you didn't know about the campaign because you didn't go to church in November.
Mm-hmm.
You went to church, and from the last week of October to when we did it in the end of November, you knew this was happening.
Or opened an email. So you either were at church or you saw an email.
Right.
Yeah, I love the I love the structure. So you came at it from many angles. Obviously, in service, emails, probably within your social media stuff. You just came at it from every angle.
Yeah.
And I think launching a campaign like this is once you launch this thing, you can't back off.
Yeah.
And, sometimes I see pastors get the courage up to talk about something, but then they don't have the conviction to drive that thing home to the goal. And I think, having that date is always fantastic because it's a finish point to where you can get to. I love the extra week though, because the reality of everyone not in church every week is so true. Right. But driving to that goal from using every means possible is certainly part of the success for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
On that note, I'd love to unpack. So again, the inspiration for the show was me somehow getting on your website and seeing the All In campaign page. Can you unpack that page a little bit? Because it sounds like those elements that are on the page were all part of the larger campaign. They just ended up packaged nicely on that page.
Right.
So you had 4 or 5 things on there that I think are super important for every campaign. So I'd love to just hear your thoughts about how you guys put that together and what went into it.
Yeah, and we did it a little different this time, and I think it was an impactful way to do it. Let me go with what you saw last and come back to what you saw first is really what you're talking about, Frank. There was a summary of the $3 million goal and the 4 or 5 categories that supported that. And so on that page, each category is a big number, $500,000 for this, $750 for that, that sort of thing. And it added up to the 3 million total. But the first thing you saw when you opened it up was, I think the first one was $21 allows us to buy 3 toys at with our special wholesale distributor to provide Christmas for our major Christmas outreach that we do.
Mm-hmm.
So $21 made a difference.
Right.
And we had examples. Oh gosh, I don't have the brochure right here with me. From $21 up to, I think the highest one was maybe $1,000. So there were smaller increments to kind of encourage that every gift makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
And I like having examples of $10,000 gifts and stuff like that as well. But this was more just a lot of small things. I think it was $15 provides meals for 5 women, at the overnight shelter that we offer that just serves women and children who are having a housing crisis. So lots of just practical examples of dollars at work.
Yeah, love that.
So you know how it's making a difference. And it was work to kind of go, okay, let's break this down and figure out how it works and be honest to the dollars. And some of the things, if you read closely, said help support, as opposed to fully funds, and getting the integrity right with all that. But it's just a way for people to see that we're making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And plenty of times, we have to do campaigns that are to turn the lights on. And it's just not as exciting as talking about feeding people in Haiti or helping women on the street or whatnot. And that's hard. But we had enough exciting things to kind of highlight ways that your gift can make a difference. It wasn't that you restricted your gift to any one of those things. It was just examples of how it makes a difference.
Right.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, so on the page you had the goal. So you actually stated your goal. We're trying to raise $3 million. I love that because it's clear, it's transparent. Like everyone knows where you're headed and what you're trying to achieve.
Right.
You had how the funds are going to be used, all the way down to, hey, your $15 gift is going to do X. I thought that was awesome. At the top of the page, you had a video for Miles.
Right.
And I think maybe that goes back to your point before, where Miles was all in himself on this whole thing. So I'd love to hear about creating the video and kind of what went into that.
Right. Well, Pastor Miles, first of all, is just an incredible communicator. So I can write, 5 bullet points for him, and he just reads it once and nails it. So a little bit of an advantage with just who he is. But he was speaking from his heart, and so that's what made it work. We actually every week with that video we sent out that we showed in church, he did a little intro to it. And right after the second service, we just filmed him with iPhone. No, actually, I lied. We had real cameras for that one. But, we do iPhone stuff all the time.
Right.
It's just authentic. It works as well. But he just gave a recap and an encouragement. So he had a fresh 30-second video or so every week that went out with the email and then introduced whatever the other, kind of cool impact video we were showing. So, yeah, and that's just hearing from your pastor. The pastor talking about is way more powerful than the video of me talking about it. He's their spiritual leader, looking for them guidance. He's given them some biblical truth along with the encouragement to jump in. And like always, we're less asking people to give, we're more asking people to go to the Lord and seek what He'd have you do here.
Right.
Yeah.
That still is a direct ask. It's not asking.
Yeah. I mean, just to, the power of the senior minister having that, courage, then conviction, and having that passion. I think, to the pastors and leaders who listen to this, sometimes they struggle with, having that conviction to really go for it. And I always see a direct correlation between churches of size, and both like in people, but also in budget, is directly connected to the ability of the senior pastor to do the ask.
Well,
over and over.
I'll tell you encouragement, any pastors listening to this, if you go to sdrock.com, find the Thanks and Giving series, listen to week 3. We actually had our Dave Ramsey type of guy at the church there for the series. But Pastor Miles started with, he goes, before we jump into that, I want to make a confession that most of my career, I didn't talk well about this subject, and I shy away from it. Wow. I didn't want to be that guy. Yeah. And I want to make a confession to you. That's just not right. It is robbing you of things you need to know from God's word. So let me start. So he had this really authentic,
beautiful
sort of, I apologize, we hadn't talked about it. And it's funny, it was the Thanks and Giving series. The first 2 ones were more about Thanksgiving and how that benefits you, a little bit of giving. Yeah. He made that confession and he added a whole nother sermon to it because he just got so into the conviction to talk about giving in a gracious way. It's not an arm twisting way. It's a biblical way.
Right. Well, the biblical way is never arm twisting. If you stay scriptural about the whole thing, it's edifying, right? It's uplifting. It's so positive, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I love that you pointed out it was his personal, authentic, real story, right? Like hearing that from anybody is powerful, but it being your senior pastor who's up there all the time carries even more weight, right? So, super cool. And you've mentioned the stories of impact. I think that on the webpage, that was the last thing I noticed, at least on the version I was looking at. They were down towards the bottom. There was 6 or 8 of them there. How did you guys get those stories, and why did you make them part of this campaign?
Yeah, and again, we're blessed that we have a big church with a video department. That's helped. But you just, if you got your ground to the ear, your ear to the ground, you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah. God's doing things.
Right.
And capturing those on film, and the key thing is taking someone's massive story and making it work in 3 minutes.
Yep.
Which requires a good editor and a good interviewer just to kind of get it down. But they're powerful. And someone just sharing how God has changed their life speaks to all of us when we're listening to it. Yep. So those video assets are pretty critical. That when we play them on Sunday morning, the crowd goes crazy as they finish because it's just a celebration of something good that God's doing.
Right.
So
I think just a point to that, some people think, wow, the Rock's such a big church and you've got this big budget and you've got a video department. if you're a 200 member church out there, there's a young person in that church that knows how to use an iPhone and even edit within the iPhone now.
Yeah, right. They could just walk around and do it all right here.
So there's no excuse.
We're sending a video out to all our first-time donors later today, probably, which Miles is going to do. Actually, I have a Samsung. I apologize, but
okay.
We got to shut the show down now. We got.
Yeah. He's just going to do it in his office like that.
Yeah.
And concise message, and we'll send it out. And we're actually doing something different. We're texting it out with a link.
Nice.
People open text more than emails.
True.
So, hey, I'll tell you one other thing we did in this campaign that we changed that was dramatic in the success rate. In years past, the first thing on that card was my faith commitment, and you put whatever it is, and then it would say, I'd like to give this monthly. I'd like to make a one-time gift. Please send me a reminder.
Mm-hmm.
We did not do that this year. Wow. It started out with my monthly gift that you fill in, or my one-time gift.
Yeah.
Here's my check's enclosed. Here's my credit card number. You had no choice for faith commitment, bill me later.
Oh, that was a big step right there. There was a lot of internal debate that happened over that one, I'm sure.
It did. And of course, plenty of people weren't ready to give there and they just didn't put anything. But our cash received, so first of all, the campaign over last year beat it by about 600,000.
Wow.
But our cash in was $500,000 more than last year as opposed to just commitments. So it was an offering, not a commitment Sunday.
Yeah.
That was radical. I've done a lot of commitment Sundays, and I've learned that people in church have great faith, and they get home and look at their budget, and their faith diminishes.
Right.
So that was a big change. And of course, we have, I'm trying to think of the numbers. We had about a little under 2,800 participants. 1,600 were straight gifts, actual gifts that day. Mm-hmm. The rest were monthlies, but a whole bunch of those already gave their first monthly gift. And then the number of just paper pledges, and I think it may have been about 800 or something like that. So most everyone else had already participated in some, and a whole bunch of them already had their credit card number down and are locked in to be recurring givers.
Yep.
So it's guaranteed. And we didn't say it was a 12-month commitment.
You just let them fill it in and let it go.
It's till you die, brother.
Yep. I love it. I love it. So good, man. There's so much gold there for people. Like, listen, if you're listening to this, there's and this is the kind of episode you might have to listen to 2-3 times.
I think we got to write it up. I think we have.
We do.
We have Jesse on our team, like, take it and just kind of write up the episode in a digestible kind of format, because there's just so much good stuff here. Yeah.
Kind of think about wrapping up here a little bit. Maybe a couple things, Chuck. What are the big challenges? And we've talked in and around, and for putting your hat on for a minute as kind of a known voice in this whole area. If you could talk to pastors of, 1, 2, 3, 400 member church, these challenges might just be in their head, right? But just maybe talk to some of those challenges as we're talking about this kind of thing today and how they overcome them.
Yeah, we talked a bit about the first thing is just having the courage to speak into it.
Yeah.
There's a rule of thumb that 10% of any group of people are very affluent.
Yep.
So 10% of the people in your church have money. And there might not be people some you don't know.
Exactly.
And God has a purpose for them and what they've made. So engaging those people, letting them be involved. Involvement leads to investment, so they kind of spend time with the pastor, understand the vision more, not shape it. Pastor shapes the vision, they drive it.
Yep.
So that's one. People want, there's a quote I heard, no one wants to part with their money, but everyone wants to change the world.
Yeah.
As believers want to change it for Christ. So you're providing the opportunity to change the world more than it's never about the lights or the building, whatever. It's about the changed lives that are going to result from those things.
Very good.
And it's just challenging in general. But the health of your church will lead the health of the giving as well.
I think so.
So leaning into what you need to have a healthy church is probably the most important thing, what God's called you to do. And then just embracing the generosity thing without fear, and knowing it's part of, every pastor has heard, I forget all the exact quotes of how many times money is mentioned compared to prayer and scripture or whatever the analogy you want to use. So it's in there, so we should preach about it.
100%.
So good. I mean, that's kind of like the biggest challenge and the biggest tip, right? Or the key to it all is having the courage, having the faith, and the senior leadership being behind the whole thing, being able to, either overcome their, lack of courage or faith in that area, or just get up and be bold about it.
It's fun when someone becomes an enthused fundraiser, because they've gone from, I feel like I'm twisting people's arms, doing something dirty and not quite seedy, not quite right, to I'm seeing God's kingdom change and the givers' lives change, and it's just fun to do.
Yeah.
And so knowing that there is another side to the, I don't want to be that guy.
Right.
Yep.
To know I'm that guy who blesses people and also sees things happen. So.
Amen. Phenomenal.
Yes, so good. And the webpage, just for everyone, because we've been talking about it, it's sdrock.com/all-in.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct. That'll get them right to the page you've been talking about.
Yeah,
yes.
That way they can check it out, maybe put some context around all the things we've been discussing. And anything, Dean, we want to ask anything else?
Man, this is so much in here. I almost don't want to have any more because there's just so much to chew on. Chuck, it's just been, we talked to a lot of people about these subjects, and hearing from someone like you that has, there's living this and doing it on such a scale, you can just tell you're a real pro. And it's been a blessing just to listen to another voice around this kind of whole area of generosity, and how you guys have specifically been kind of so successful with this all-in campaign. I think it's a model. And I know Pastor Miles, he's like, anything that can come out of the rock and bless other churches, he's up for giving it away. So you just encourage everyone to go to that URL, see about what the all-in campaign is all about, and just copy everything you can and implement it. Right.
That's right.
I always say plagiarism's the highest form of flattery. So everything on that page I stole from someone else.
There you go.
Very good.
Awesome.
So here's my last question. Your goal was 3 million. Where are you at now? How far?
We're at 2.8.
Amazing.
We have a dinner tomorrow night, which I think will put us over it.
Amazing.
With some folks that are particularly interested in one area of the campaign, that I hope we'll be able to celebrate that we exceeded the goal. So
yeah, that's awesome. Congrats.
Love it.
Congrats on the success.
Congratulations.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it's up from the last year we did it, and it was 2.1. So we're thrilled about it.
Oh my gosh, so good.
So good. Thanks for joining us, Chuck. This is awesome.
Real pleasure,
Chuck.
guys.
Appreciate it, mate. We'll see you soon.
All right.
All righty. Wow, man. Well, what a great episode. And we've got next week, before we wrap up, we've got a phenomenal guest next week.
Oh, it's going to be good. Rick Dunham, founder, CEO of Dunham & Company. And they do a ton of stuff as it relates to church fundraising. And they produce a bunch of reports, and they study the industry. And so it's going to be fun to unpack all the data with Chuck. With Rick, Rick Dunham, and just get his perspective leading into 2019. Yeah,
Dunham & Co. are probably the premier data collectors when it comes to, generosity in the church. So that's going to be power packed and lots of great takeaway. Want to say thanks everybody for tuning in. It was great hanging out with Chuck Leslie. Make sure you go to that URL and see how they did the all-in campaign. And we will see you next time here on the podcast. God bless you guys. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys. See ya.